Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be taking your first step into a larger world. We're going to be doing your first comp in Fusion, taking what you know from After Effects, bringing it into Fusion, and start learning how to deal with node-based compositing. Now, the advantage of learning how to use the node-based compositing is one, it increases your skill sets and be able to comp in things like Nuke and Natron or any other node-based compositing programs, because they're pretty much all the same. So without further ado, let's get started, okay? So here we are in Fusion. Pretty much what you're seeing is the default layout that we started with last time. And today we're going to be doing our first major comp. Well, not major comp, it's going to be a simple comp. But let's start with the principle and concept ideas. So in After Effects, we make our comps by putting more and more layers onto each other and cutting things out. And that's pretty much the same principle with Fusion, except for we don't have layers. We have merge nodes. So let's go ahead and bring in a file first. All right, we're going to go ahead and hit the loader button and bring in this file here. Now, last time I mentioned how the background preferences and your your global preferences and your comp preferences were very important, and they could be totally separate. And this is the perfect example. So we see that this image is 1920 by 1080, which is HD. However, if we bring in a background by the system, it is UHD, or almost 4K. And that's because the background was set based on the global information. All right, if I bring in a roto, that's what these group here is. There's a roto, and those are also almost UHD. So that's not going to fit on top of this. Fusion likes everything to be the same size. So come here to the preferences, and the UHD was set because of this was set to UHD, the global and default settings. I can't change those right now because I'm in the middle of a job and I can't really change those, but I can change the composition frame and format to 1920 by 1080. All right. And now let's go ahead and delete these and bring those in again. And now my background and my roto are both 1920 by 1080, just like my footage. So we're all playing happy now. And that's the very first thing you really need to check once you bring in your first footage, is to make sure that your backgrounds all match your project. Okay, so let's do some rotoing before we do anything else. So here's your roto quick buttons. You can either click it or drag it, whatever. So this is a square, pretty self-explanatory. Circle. Alright. The one you'll live in mostly is the free form polygon. So just like polygons in After Effects, pretty simple. Alright, now, but how do I get to see the image and what I'm rotoing? Well, if you put her into the first channel, let's go ahead and just make this only one viewer so we have more room space. Rotoing space. Okay, so we put her in the one window here, and we double click on our polygon. Alright, so let's go ahead and just get a new polygon. I hit the letter P for polygon, and then I'm just going to go ahead and start drawing. Alright, this is really rough, but that's okay. We'll go over how to fix this in a moment. Now I just zoomed in there. You're probably wondering how I zoomed in and out. Well, in order to move around your workspace, you use the middle mouse click button to move around, and the middle mouse button and your left click button, you get to zoom in and zoom out by dragging left and right. Don't drag up and down. Left and right is much easier. Okay, so now here I am, did a really wonderful job rotoing. Just kidding. So let's go ahead and start adjusting. Up here at the top is control panels for dealing with your spline, and they only appear when you've double clicked your polyspine node. So I'm going to grab all these and smooth those bad boys out just like that. Alright, I'm going to bring another poly spline in here, and you don't need to click anything like you do in After Effects to bring an extra spline in. You just click on the line and that brings it in. Just go ahead and smooth the nose out. Alright, if you want to adjust these poly splines independently, you control and we'll break the linear edge. So there we go. So now we've done a decent roto. Now how do we cut our face out? Okay, so as you can see, I moved it over here for a reason. The blue is always masks. Alright, so they basically cut things out for you, which is this would be equivalent to just throwing a roto spline on a layer, which is fine, nothing wrong with that. However, with Fusion and other node-based compositing programs, they like you to reuse your read nodes as much as possible, because to bring another layer in, you could do it this way and have something else cut out instead. So if we look at that, it looks like that, and then you combine them. That's how we do it in After Effects. But again, like I said, node-based compositing programs don't like that. So the next thing I'm going to show you is different ways to cut that out. So let's go ahead and grab this, copy, paste it, and leave it as one example. The other way, let's go undo that, is with the matte node. Alright, so we bring that in to the yellow, this into the green. Yellow is background and green is foreground, and then you set and grab the alpha and combine it. As you can see, it divides itself. So let's pre-multiply that, and we've pretty much did the same result. So there's that and that. They're the same exact one. The other way, which is the way I like to do it, is use the brightness contrast. And the reason why I use this is because this on memory is very expensive. This literally costs hardly anything. So let's go ahead and grab our assets and use this as an example. Set that in the matte node, to the background, and then turn on my alpha and turn it down. But wait, I've cut out the wrong thing. I'll come over here. All nodes have this. They have a matte input. Any node that has a matte input that has invert mask. Alright, so this is my preferred method to doing it. Other people will have their own versions of doing it. Some people do it this way, some people use the Boolean. Yeah, that's the bad thing about node-based compositing. There's several different ways of doing the same thing. Alright, so let's do this. Let's start building this as an actual comp. Alright. Some people use this as their background and then branch off of it. I don't like doing that. I always like to start with a nice clean canvas, whether it be black or whatever. Alright. This will tell me where I'm beginning. Alright. Now to use a merge node to bring in to combine layers. So in this case, let's go ahead and combine these two guys. The square is always output into the output. There we go. So I've put her on a black background. So we can actually change that background. Alright. Now Fusion and Nuke and all these other compositing programs, they comp downward, whereas After Effects comps upward. And I know that's going to get something for you to get used to, but that's just how it is. You can comp like this, but if you pass it off to other artists, especially people who've been using node-based compositing programs for a long time, you're just going to really piss them off. So really start to learn to comp downward, because that's pretty much the industry standard with node-based compositing. Okay, so let's go ahead and add another layer. As you can see with After Effects, I can add as many layers as I want in here, but this merge node only has one input, and that's this one right here. And it also has a matte input, but we'll talk about that in a moment. Okay, so how do we get another layer? Well, once you've combined this node is now a background to your next node. So if we bring another merge in, that is now the background, and then this one will be your foreground. Let's go ahead and change that matte so we can actually see. Oops. Let's go change that matte so we can see what we're see any particular changes that we've done. So let's do this. There we go. So now we look at double click this bottom merge, hit 1, and that is just what we saw previously. To prove that this is actually on top, I'm going to add a color corrector to this node here. Which I hit the letter C. Oops, I hit the wrong one. Let's see. It's me working in new. They have different keyboard commands. Alright, so let's go ahead and crank that. And as you can see, that's on top of. This roto is on top of the red one. But here's the thing with node-based compositing. They don't like you re-bringing in the same node more than once. Yes, you can, but it's a faux pas, if you will. It likes you to use literally the same node if you can. So come in here, hit the Alt key to bring a pipe down, and elbow, and make it nice and clean. Alright, so there's your first rough composite of how to build a simple composite of A over B, and you just continue down the line until you get as many layers as you want. Yeah, so think about these as layers. So let's talk about polyspline adjustments. So let's go ahead and use this as an example. So let's take our figure here and roto. Alright. So within this roto, we get a nice little opacity ability and feather ability. Alright. And expansion ability. Alright. So each rotospline also has the same thing, which is a soft edge, a border width to make it a little bigger or make it smaller, and levels to adjust the opacity. So there's your three things that After Effects has, Fusion has as well when it comes to polysplines. The one thing you have to understand about this though is if I want to create another polyspline, I have the layer selected and I create another polyspline. Fine and dandy, and it just adds to it. Fusion doesn't do it that way. For each polyspline, it requires another node, another polyspline. So I can come in here and add another piece. Letter P, add another piece. And if I wanted to look at what I was actually rotoing, I'd have to go to a different element. This is why we don't chop it off the main element. It's because of this right here, the same reason. You know, there we go. So that's the thing is with about adding additional polysplines to Fusion. Is each polyspline or each roto requires their own node, and it's good because it allows people to understand how many rotos you've got going on. All right, so there's that. There's your basic composite. So in a moment we're going to talk about other ways of bringing in mattes using RGB channels, and so we'll get to that in just a moment. Okay, so now here we are again in our comp. Let you guys play around with your comp a little bit, but now here we are, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to go ahead and bring in another read node, R. We're going to bring in this RGB matte, and we're going to bring in this image here. So here's the image. Here is the RGB matte that goes with it. Letter R shows the red, G for the green, and B for the blue. And as you can see, my blue isn't clean because I've got a little bit of ghosting right there. So, which is fine for what we're doing. Okay, so let's go ahead and bring in a matte node. Set that in here. bring our matte into the foreground, and then we're going to combine our red channels. Alright, and just like before, we're dividing onto itself, so we got to pre-multiply and cut our guy out. So, or we can do let's do the blue channel. No, let's do the green channel. Now, let's change our mind. Let's do the red channel. So we're going to put this little fella on top of our ugly comp here. Alright? But we're also going to use this as our background. Alright, so we need our merge. Put that in there. And then we're going to pipe our merge into here, and then double click and look through our piece. Why isn't this working? Why isn't this working? Can anybody tell me? Oh, I got too many. It's because this right here. Again, I always get confused with this. I wish they had it a different way, like A or B, but it's because I accidentally put the background into the foreground and the foreground into the background. So the yellow needs to go into the background. There we go. So there we have it. We have our dude. Let's go ahead and put a transform on that right here after our cutout. And then we're going to move him over. There we go. Now the next thing we're going to do is use this as our actual background. We'll do that with a simple merge and our foreground into there. So now if we look at the whole comp, now it's starting to look really, really weird. But hey, that's the point, to show you exactly what is background, midground, more midground, and a foreground element. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and just add a color to this one as well. Oops. So we'll make this one. There we go. So that is your basic comp techniques for layering and Fusion. So as you can see, comping in a node-based compositing package versus a layer-based compositing package is a totally different mindset. But once you get it and understand it, you'll find that it's actually quite easy to do, and much easier to do a lot of the functions that you used to do or be frustrated with After Effects. For example, in After Effects, in order to sometimes affect a layer that you've had already a bunch of other stuff affecting it, you needed to pre-comp that layer before you could get the results of that. Like if you're trying to make a matte out of a layer, an RGB layer, and you've desaturated it, color corrected it, and crunched it out so you had black and white images. And in order to get the result of that, sometimes you have to pre-comp that before you can actually use it as a set matte. With node-based compositing packages, you don't have to do that. You just take whatever the last output is, and it pretty much whatever that is, it is. So if you've done all that, you don't have to pre-comp, and that's the reason why node-based compositing packages don't have a pre-comp type of thing. You just branch it off from wherever you want inside your comp, and you can reuse it anytime you want. And that's the reason, another reason why you don't really cut out your footage from the actual footage itself from your read node. You instead cut it out through by other means, whether you do the brightness contrast technique or the matte technique, or you use a merge node and use one of the operations in that, which I actually never use in Fusion. In Nuke, I use the merge node all the time to cut things out or stencil things out because it's much easier to do. But in Fusion, it's a little bit more wonky when it comes to doing stuff like that. So, go ahead, start building your first comp in Fusion and just start experimenting with all the different effects you can do with it and where you put things, because believe it or not, where you put things also make a difference on what the comp's going to end up doing or what's going to end up looking like. So have fun, enjoy, and I'll see you at the next video, which I believe we'll be talking about tracking.